Welcome to the Sports Pharmacy Podcast, where we dispense clinical and evidence-based information to optimize health and human performance. I'm Brandon Welch, a clinical sports pharmacist and your host of the show. Today's guest is Katie Dinnebier, a second-year pharmacy student at Drake University, where she is also a standout guard on the women's basketball team. Katie's not only making moves in the classroom with a focus on pharmacy and a background in business, but also on the court, where she's been named Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year twice and was a finalist for the 2025 Becky Hammon Mid-Major Player of the Year award. Without further ado, please welcome me and joining our guest, Katie Dinnebier. What's going on, Katie?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Of
Excited to
course.
be here.
Hey, you have a very impressive resume. It's funny because as I was reading this off, I'm like, man, you've accomplished a lot, and it speaks to your leadership, your vision, and your ability to be able to pivot into different areas.
Yeah,
Now,
it's been a crazy career. Crazy. It went by really fast, but no, I've always been interested in the field of athletics and then also healthcare. So it's kind of been the perfect path for me. It's been jam packed, but and I wouldn't want it any other way.
I mean, man, you've had an amazing and awesome journey. It's kind of like what I was telling you, and I know we laughed about it before we got on this podcast. Is I'm probably one of the very many who've already interviewed you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I feel like I'm used to it now.
yeah. So this isn't even practice for you anymore. I mean,
Nope.
yeah. So talking a little bit about your journey, right, and all the accolades that you've done, and you recently just pivoting over into pharmacy school
Mhm.
off of making a very tough decision between going to the WNBA, right? Kind of walk us through that decision process. What kind of pivoted you more into pharmacy school versus making that big decision to go into the WNBA?
Yeah, really tough decision. I think especially right now in today's world, WNBA is hot and a lot of people are watching women's basketball, especially at the professional level. So that was really enticing for me. Obviously, I love basketball, so um, wasn't quite ready to give it up yet. And I literally took until the night before the draft deadline to decide. So it really took me a while to come to a final decision. But at the end of the day, I love pharmacy and I want to help people and I didn't want to push off pharmacy school any longer. I'm already 2 years in and I'm loving it. So I figured why not just finish it up and then be able to make an immediate impact and not have to push that behind any further.
Is there like a particular moment where you said, "Hey, pharmacy school is kind of something that has sparked my attention from I don't know 4 or 5 years ago," or kind of where was it where you said, "Hey, pharmacy is something that I'm definitely interested in."
Yeah, I took a really long time to decide, but I think I always knew in the back of my mind that I wanted to stay with pharmacy school. It just took me coming to that decision publicly and making that decision known to everyone else to really solidify what I wanted to do. So I don't know if there was necessarily a moment, but I think I always knew that I wanted to do pharmacy school. And I honestly, basketball's hard. Basketball is a commitment, and in college, it becomes a full time job. So I was ready to pursue the next thing in the next chapter.
I mean, especially your case, talking about basketball being a commitment. I mean, you're coming off of a season where you were averaging 23.5 points a game, dropping roughly about 7 dimes. I mean, I was looking at your stats year over year from when you started at Drake. I mean, things just improved. I mean, last year, your recent year, right? You
Mm-hmm.
just kind of took off.
Yep.
And so I can imagine those demands that you had placed on your sport were pretty heavy. And
Yeah, and a funny story going back to rehabilitation and pharmacy. I actually had Tommy John surgery last April on my elbow.
wow,
So I not only was coming into a season that I knew was my last year, I was going through rehab. I didn't even practice all summer. I wasn't able to.
jeez,
So that grind from August to October was crazy. It took basketball took up a lot of my time. But you have that rehab. You're on medications. You're seeing doctors all the time, 24/7, and then you're also trying to be a student pharmacist. You're also trying to be a Division I athlete performing at a high level. So yeah, that last year was kind of crazy for me.
I can
Yeah, that
imagine.
also kind of played into the decision a little bit too. But yeah, no, like I was ready.
Juggling a lot all at once.
Yeah.
And then, like in hindsight, is it pretty crazy to think that you're going from being an athlete to in the next 2 years you're going to be a doctor?
Yeah, crazy. I don't think I'm ready for doctor level. I'm not ready for my doctor status. 2 years I will be, but no, it's just a totally different world. Um, and it was kind of unique. In our case, we had two people on our team that were in pharmacy school
Okay.
and already pursuing our doctorate,
No
which I
kidding.
feel like a
Okay.
lot of programs don't allow. They would be like, "Are you crazy? There's no way you're going to be a Division I athlete performing at a high level and pursuing pharmacy school. Like seriously, hang it up."
Yeah.
So we kind of had that unique experience going through college basketball, and also which speaks to Drake and how amazing they and how accommodating they have been to all of us. Um, but we had four people in our senior class. All four of us are going on to professional school, doctorate school.
No
Um,
kidding. Okay.
yeah, so two pharmacists, one podiatrist, and then one's going to medical school at Mayo. So we had a really high achieving class, and I think that speaks to Drake's culture as well.
Geez, all doctorate degrees.
Right. It's crazy.
Wow. Now, kind of walk us through, I guess, that emotional journey. You
hmm
stepping away from sports, and then now you going into pharmacy school.
Yeah. Very emotional, very hard. Again, it's a hard decision for anyone. But at the end of the day, you got to hang up the shoes at some point. You can't play basketball forever. And I think I had kind of reached that point where I understood the journey I was taking. Basketball I've played since fourth grade, so it's really become a part of my identity. And I think even over the last 3 months where I've been just a student and not an athlete, I've kind of had to reshape my identity a little bit towards just being a pharmacist and someone who is working to help others. And that's really my ultimate goal at the end of the day. I want to make others happy and I want to make others feel good and be able to live a life that's fulfilling and with no medical problems.
Right.
um, but I really have had to kind of change my identity a little bit. I'm always Katie, but I did not Katie the basketball player anymore. And that's how people have seen me for so long. So it's been kind of a unique journey. But like I said, everyone has to do it at some point, whether it's after you finish your collegiate basketball career, after you finish your high school basketball career. It's just another chapter in your life.
You got it. I always say you got to know how to pivot, and I can imagine, especially for professional level, whether it's basketball for or any professional level sport that someone's playing, that doesn't start in your college or professional years. That starts from when you're a kid, right?
Right.
Because you spend all those years kind of preparing for that. So I can only imagine that identity shift can sometimes be a challenge, because you're so used to being identified as Katie the basketball player
Right.
or James the football player, and you
hmm
playing all those years in that professional sport. I've seen, just based off of athletes that I've talked to, it's always kind of been a challenge kind of getting over that hump.
hmm Agreed. Yeah, it's been different. And like I said, I'm working an internship this summer. This is the first summer I've been able to work 40-hour weeks. So it's been quite the adjustment. I'm working in a cubicle and not on the basketball court. Yeah, very different.
Now, out of curiosity, we know that obviously your training schedule is crazy, right?
Yeah.
When you're an athlete, how has that kind of shifted into you no longer playing,
hmm
professional sports? How have you kind of adjusted your training, exercising, and your performance?
Yeah, I actually, our I'm still on Drake's campus, so I'm still around. Our girls, they play pickup, so where they scrimmage against each other on a random day of the week. I went back once and I realized it's too early for me. I'm not ready for this yet. I just got out of it, so I haven't touched a basketball since April. So my training has shifted completely. I
I can
work out
imagine.
every morning early. I yeah, I lift on my own. Uh, I really am liking saunas. I love sitting in the sauna. That's not really working out, but I feel like when I'm sweating, it kind of is.
Yep.
So that's been my recovery, I guess. But I actually have taken up running, and I swore always growing up I'd never be a runner. I ran cross country in eighth grade, and it was not for me.
Hmm.
Um, I ran a 5K about a month ago, and I ended up winning my age division. And I loved
Nice.
the
Wow.
competition. I loved the competition because I was able to compete again.
Yeah.
Um, very different than basketball. And I really, truly don't enjoy running. I'm not a long distance runner,
Uh huh.
but I do love to compete. So I'm signed up for a 5K in October. So I'm training, or not a 5K, a half marathon in
Whoa.
October. So
Okay.
I'm been training for that. We'll see how that goes. But I feel like a half marathon is something that you just got to do it, and so you can say you've done it. So that's what I've been training for recently. So it's been kind of different but fun.
And that's different from basketball, right? Where it's,
Yeah,
high intensity, stop, high intensity, stop. There's a lot of go and stop, more anaerobic versus you now
right.
shifting over into, doing more endurance running. It's more aerobic. So
Right. It's hard.
I can imagine.
Like, kudos to all the runners. I could play a basketball game back to back to back, but like running 10 miles
It's
straight.
not easy.
Oh, oh my gosh, it's hard.
It requires a certain level of discipline.
It does. It's all a mental game. You can run for as long as you want, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
getting over that mental hump.
So, looking back at your time as an athlete, did you ever imagine a pharmacist playing a meaningful role in your care or your performance? Or is it something that didn't really cross your mind, a pharmacist working with an athlete?
Yeah, honestly, until we talked on our initial call, I had no idea that that was even an option. I would have loved to have known that as an option being a college athlete because I think pharmacists bring so much value, and we truly do. And I'm only through 2 years, but I feel like we have so much knowledge, whether that be on the pathology side, whether that be on the medication side, disease state. Like we do know a lot. And I think that can be very valuable for athletes. But no, I had no idea that that was an avenue that pharmacists go down.
Yeah, I always say, pharmacists don't do the best job, and I can be a victim of this too. Is that I
Mm-hmm.
feel like pharmacists don't always do the best job advocating for the value that they
Mm-hmm.
have.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, right?
right,
Because you're typical. If you had a survey, right, of the general population, what does a pharmacist do? I guarantee you, 90+% of them would probably say just count medications and verify
right,
them.
right.
But we can do so much more. There's so much more, in our toolbox that we can
Mhm.
do that a lot of people don't really realize.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. And to your point, we always get that image. Yep, you're just sitting behind the counter, counting bills and making calls, and no,
Absolutely,
that's
right.
that's a small population. Like, no,
Such a small percentage of it. I mean,
right,
we go to school to learn about kinetics, pharmaceuticals,
right,
biochemistry, pathophysiology. I mean, I can go
right,
on.
right.
So,
It's insane, and people don't understand that. Yeah.
and we forget to, and I forgot, I was talking to one of my colleagues about this, is that sometimes and you probably appreciate this too, is that sometimes we think because athletes, um, they identify as someone who takes care of their body, eats a good meal. They're very well dialed into, their performance, that sometimes it neglects us from thinking that, hey, they're humans too, and they take medications. They suffer
Mhm.
from, different disease states, and it's important for us to realize that, is because you realize the people that are supporting their care, they each have a role. When we think about a pharmacist supporting athletes, sometimes they're taking medications. Now,
Right.
the most common ones we know of are NSAIDs or
Yeah.
pain medications. But what about the people? What about the athletes that may be suffering from asthma,
Right.
hypothyroidism, red S, type 1 diabetes? The list can go on. And I
Yeah.
think that there can be a order or a priority when it comes to pharmacists being able to fine tune certain medications, because one of the medications that the athlete could be taking can be impacting their performance, where a pharmacist can select another drug or figure out what are some strategies to kind of help better mitigate some of those side effects. And you know this better than I do, is that 1% or 2% difference in just tweaking something,
Mhm.
and something an athlete is doing, it could really take somebody from being a an average player to being a good or great player.
Right, and it's unique in the way that a lot of athletes, like you mentioned, have no idea that I mean, that could be the cause of their underperformance. And I think pharmacists would play a unique role in assisting in the athletic trainers, because sometimes the athletic trainers, they don't know necessarily medications or what can have interactions. So I think that's where pharmacists would be on that multidisciplinary team of assisting in the already foundational athletic trainers. But then you have the pharmacist that really has that specialty and can help athletes reach their peak performance.
Absolutely. I'm all about interprofessionalism, doing it, having an interdisciplinary approach. And you said it best, athletic trainers, they're forced to do a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sometimes we forget they are the gatekeepers. They're the ones that are close in contact with the athletes. And, athletes trust people that they're most familiar with. And
Right.
from my experience and what I see is that it's the athletic trainers that are constantly with the athletes day in and day out.
Yep.
And, you know, the athletes are asking the athletic trainers, hey, what's the best over the counter medication to take? What's the best topical medication to take for, my knee pain?
Mm-hmm.
And if they have that resource vessel to be able to reach out to a pharmacist who may be very accessible, I think could be a big game changer for the athlete in the long run.
Right. I agree with you 100%. I think it's a really unique position, and I think it could be really beneficial.
So, having lived the life of a collegiate athlete, I know we've been talking about the medication piece with pharmacists being valuable there, but do you see any other gaps based on your experience, whether that's supplement safety, staying compliant with the banned substance list, managing pain? Where else do you see are some gaps pharmacists can fill for athletes?
Yeah, I think supplementation is a big thing. We don't necessarily get that, I guess, at the mid major level. What's NCAA certified and allowable to take? We have our strength coaches will bring in protein powder that'll be in the locker room, which we just take it because that's what's in the locker room, but not necessarily knowing like what we're taking, why we're taking it. They say take the multivitamins, take the iron pills, take this and this and this and this, and then it's set out on the counter for us, but no one has any idea what they're actually taking it for. So
So
I think
true,
that's that gap. Like you're just taking it because yeah, you're just told, and then you don't really have another option. But
right?
I think just that knowledge and education piece that can come from pharmacists, and so much has come out about supplementation recently. I feel like, and more people are starting to get into that. But people don't. People see it on TikTok and are like, "Oh, I'm gonna buy ashwagandha or whatever, like whatever it is, just
Yes.
because they see it, and not necessarily knowing why, what the reasoning is, what brands to get, or actually looking at the nutrition and the ingredient label. Like some of those protein powders, they have so many extra excipients that are not necessary, but people have no idea because it says protein powder, and that's good for me and I need protein. So I think that's where pharmacists can really bridge the gap, is providing that extra education for athletes who don't necessarily know either what they're taking, why they're taking it, or how they're supposed to take it, whether that fits into training or to their sleep schedule, all of the above.
No, that's so true. I feel like supplements is probably the questions I get asked the most.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it very well. Like a lot of the athletes, they look to social media.
Yeah.
TikTok is a huge influencer and to their decisions when it comes to what supplements to take. And these proprietary blend formulas that come out and claim to do X to improve your performance. This, like you're always looking for that competitive edge,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so wherever you can find or see that, that's what you're going to tend to go with. And sometimes that can be a little bit spooky, is because you want to make sure that whatever you're ingesting inside of your body isn't anything banned, is because we know what those sanctions
Right.
could look like if you do something like that. So you got to make sure that you're using informed decision making
Right.
by making sure that you have the right educational resources in front of you.
Yeah. 100%.
So, I mean, now that you have all this information, you're in your second year, you have 2 years left of pharmacy school. Do you kind of have an idea of what type of pharmacist you want to be?
No clue. No clue.
Hey, sports
And
pharmacist is calling your name.
I know.
Good
And
way to
see,
get back to your
exactly.
roots.
It would be amazing. And I would love to stay around the athletes and be involved in training because I do think that is a really big opportunity for growth, especially in pharmacists, because like we talked about earlier, a lot of people don't know that pharmacists can provide benefit to athletes,
They
and
don't.
a lot of pharmacists don't right now. So I think that's a huge avenue for growth and opportunity and learning for athletes. Yeah, I would love to stay connected because that might be my career path. I honestly have no idea. So I still got 2 years to figure it out. And every summer I'm like, oh, I'm getting a little closer. Like I'm weeding out what I like and I don't like. But yeah, I have no idea yet what I want to specialize in.
Hey, at least we ruled out retail.
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's good to find what you don't like because I will, you not catch me in a retail pharmacy.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the gauntlet.
Yeah,
That's what I call it.
it is. That's so true. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, look, I always say when it comes to new roles or new specialties, all it takes is for one or two institutions to kind of prove some type of concept, right?
Yep.
And then after there's a proof of concept that's already been developed, that's
Hmm.
when things kind of take off. And I mean, Drake knows you were an athlete. They've known
Yep.
that you've gone through pharmacy school, and they know that'll be easy for you to kind of relate and build trust and rapport with those athletes. So,
Right.
so
Right.
hey, you never know what will come out of it.
Exactly. Yep.
And we're seeing more institutions. I know USC they have their sports pharmacist Michael Kessler over
Hmm.
there working with the collegiate teams. And so, like my projection is that I think that more college institutions or colleges of pharmacies that are attached to an athletic program,
Yeah.
they're going
Yeah.
to see they're going to see the need.
Yeah. They should. They should. And if not, they need education on why.
That's right.
Hmm.
So, anyways, Katie, I know you got a busy schedule ahead of you. That's all we have time for today. Just for our audience here, where is a good place for people to find you, follow you, and see some of the cool things that you're doing?
Yeah. All my social media is just Katie Dinnebier. So just my first and last name. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook. Facebook is just Katie Dinnebier. So, and feel free to add me on LinkedIn too.
Or just Google your name. I mean, all these
Right.
interviews you've done, I mean, your SEO is probably crazy at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to see anything about my basketball career, just Google me. It'll probably bring up about 100 articles. So
Right.
it's all there. Yep.
Last question for you. Who's your favorite WNBA player?
Ooh, Caitlin Clark. I gotta go with the
Ah,
hometown
okay,
girl.
kid.
Yep, I gotta give her kudos. She's awesome. She's a good person too. So
Yeah, yeah. I love her game. I always
yeah,
say like, it's not so much. I know that, when she first came out and people thought that, she was getting all this attention and it was
yep.
unfair. It's because WNBA has been around for years. But here's the thing: whenever someone does something transformational,
Hmm.
right, change the landscape of the game. I always use Steph Curry as a
Yep.
comparison. Steph Curry is the reason why you have centers now shooting 3 pointers behind the perimeter, right?
Right.
He's changed the game, and so when I think about Caitlin Clark and how transformative she was, pulling up from half court, knocking down threes, it's just a very unique skill set that we've never seen, and so she's my favorite player too. I like Asia Wilson as well.
Yeah, she's a dog.
She, yes,
She's a
she
dog.
has a good in the paint game.
Mhm.
Shout out to Angel Reese. She has a good post up game too.
Yep.
Good defensive player.
Yep.
But Caitlin Clark has stole my attention too.
She's awesome, and so she's from my home, or well, a neighboring town in my hometown. So grew up watching her play, playing against her, playing with her. So it's been kind of crazy. Like sometimes my old travel teammates will like joke like she's really famous. Like just a couple of years ago, we were playing on the same travel team. So it's just like it's crazy,
That's
and
wild.
she's done amazing things for the game of basketball. So it's been really cool to watch her and follow her game, and hope she's back on the court soon. I mean, she's been out for a little bit, so I'm excited to see her start playing again.
She has. I get excited too to finally see the WNBA get the attention that
Mhm.
they deserve.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a really crazy time to be a part of women's basketball, and it's just the beginning. So I'm really excited to see where it goes in the future.
Same here. Well, that's all we have time for today. It was great catching up with you, Katie, and thanks so much for being on this podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love being here.
Of course, it's a pleasure.